Viewers, thank you for joining us on India Upfront. The revered institution of Tirupati temple, a beacon of hope and spirituality for millions, has been desecrated. The shocking revelation that animal fat, including fish oil, beef tallow, and lard, that is pig fat, could have been used to make prasadam under the Jagan rule is a reprehensible act of sacrilege. Viewers, the sentiments of crores of devotees have been callously trampled upon, leaving an indelible scar on the collective Hindu psyche. Just imagine, viewers, how can the faithful now trust that the prasadam offered to them is pure and untainted? The very foundation of their devotion has been shaken. The prasadam, once a symbol of divine blessings, has been reduced to a potentially polluted offering. Will devotees now have to suffer the agony of doubt, questioning the sanctity of every ritual, every morsel, Viewers, this heinous act is an affront to the sacred traditions of the faith. Those behind this act have displayed a blatant disregard for the faith and the sentiments of millions. This controversy is a symptom of a larger problem, viewers, the undue interference of the state governments in the administration of Hindu temples. This egregious act makes a compelling case to free Hindu temples. Government interference has led to rampant corruption, mismanagement, and commercialization of these sacred institutions. The fact that temple funds are being diverted to purposes other than Hindu welfare is a complete travesty.
Tirumala Laddu Row Nasi rakam nakaithe ఆశ్చర్యం వేస్తుంది. ఎన్ని కంప్లైంట్ చేసినా కడాన వెంకటేశ్వర స్వామి పవిత్రతను దెబ్బతీశారు. ఎన్నోసార్లు చెప్పాము. అక్కడ ఎంత దుర్మార్గంగా ప్రయత్నం చేశారంటే అంత దుర్మార్గంగా ప్రవర్తించారు. కడాన అన్న దానంలో క్వాలిటీ ఆఫ్ ఫుడ్ లేకుండా చేశారు. దేవుని దగ్గర పెట్టే ప్రసాదం అపవిత్రం చేసే విధంగా ఓసారి బాధేస్తుంది. నాసి రకమైన ఇంగ్రీడియంట్సే కాకుండా ఎనిమల్ ఫ్యాట్ కూడా వాడారని, ఏది ఘీకు బదులు.
They have clearly stated lard, point number 4. Point number 1, fish oil. Point number 3, beef tallow. What is lard? Lard is nothing but animal fat. My point, it's not only beef. It is these animals which have been killed, which where there's a big racket going on in South India, where dog meat is supplied. Even dog meat has been used is our contention now.
Baseless allegations, shocking allegations, like saying that in TTD, while YCP is in governance, they have damaged the decorum and sanctity of the Tirumala Laddu Row.
एक पापी मुख्यमंत्री ने हमारे मंदिर को अपवित्र करने का षड्यंत्र किया गया। तो इसलिए मैं मोदी जी से, अमित शाह जी से, खास करके मुख्यमंत्री जी जो चंद्रबाबू नायडू जी हैं, उनसे निवेदन करना चाहता हूं कि इसके षड्यंत्र को पब्लिक के सामने लेकर आए और ऐसे व्यक्ति को तुरंत अरेस्ट करे। यहां मैं निवेदन करना चाहता हूं।
Very serious thing, and we can't. Lord Venkateshwara is believers of Lord Venkateshwara always have greater faith in the system which was running the Devasthanam. And if Jagan and the gang around Jagan has done these kind of things, the serious investigation is needed, and those people involved must be punished.
Let's open this up. Joining us is Sai Deepak. Needs no introduction. Sai, good evening. Thank you for your time. We have to put this in context for our viewers. So I want to begin by asking you, what do you make of this disclosure?
So during the tenure of Mr. Jagannath Reddy, I think it was public knowledge. I don't think it was even a secret that proselytization was heavily supported by the establishment under his rule, to the extent that there were ministers from his cabinet who have made public statements to the effect that at least 20 to 25% of the population stood converted to Christianity. And there are several videos available of, I would say, freelance pastors and missionaries constantly roaming the streets, hoping to get converts and hoping to harvest souls on a daily basis. Cross-plantation took place across the board. If you were to look at the sacred hill of Tirumala, This was rampant. Forget just Tirumala, you can even go to Vijayawada. I've traveled often to that place during this period to see the visible change in the character and culture of the place and the state-sponsored attempts to change the identity and the demographic balance of the place. So I'm not particularly surprised at what has happened in Tirupati. I would just be surprised if this is merely milked for political benefit by any party without taking action. And this reinforces my central theme that not just under the Jagan government, under no government are Hindu temples safe. And I think on this issue, I've said enough. That just as any other community has the right to free its religious institutions from the clutches of any government, regardless of the party in power, Hindus certainly have the right to expect the same treatment. And when we know for a fact that this is the extent of, I'd say, interference, not just interference, deliberate mischief that any party or any government is capable of playing with the sentiments of Hindus, I see no reason to take a partisan position here. Instead, I'll take the very clear position I've always taken. Government must free our temples of control, and they must leave it to the devotees to manage their institutions. Just as other communities can manage their institutions, Hindus can do it as well.
Well said. In fact, I began by underlining the point that this case makes it even more compelling. The argument to free our temples from state control, and I agree with you completely when you say that this is not just limited to this state or this temple. But Sai, while the governments will do what they have to do, what should the devotees do?
See, frankly speaking, people should at least draw some lessons. I'm sorry, but I have to step into the realm of politics to make the statement here that you must try and support those establishments or outfits which come closest to your ideals and to your identity. I don't think there is any party that is completely ideal, but nevertheless, I think people must use the cards that are on the table. Number two, the society must take an active position against this, and they should not end up in just another social media outreach cycle. They must put pressure on the central government to address this issue in one stroke. Otherwise, in every state, we'll be looking at multiple rounds of litigation. I've said this before. I am not the first person to make this statement. All issues relating to religious temples and other religious institutions and endowment issues fall within entry 28 of the concurrent list, which means the union government equally has the power to interfere with this particular issue and set the house in order across the country, as opposed to having to deal with it state by state. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves in a situation where if the Congress is in power in a particular state, then suddenly we'll start talking about freedom of temples in that particular state while ignoring what's happening to temples in other states. Okay, this cannot be the way in which this issue is addressed. If you're concerned about the community interest, then we must place community's interest over and above any organizational interest. And therefore, I am of the clear view that as opposed to reducing this particular issue to a situation where people score brownie points by taking political pot shots at one another, the fact of the matter is it is Hindu interest at stake. And therefore, anything and everything that can be done to set the house in order across the board, not just in one particular state, must be done. But Andhra Pradesh certainly needs a serious look, because for all these years, people have been focusing on only state control of temples in Tamil Nadu and the rampant proselytization attempts in Tamil Nadu with the support of the current establishment there. But this has been going on in Andhra Pradesh for several years. Before Jagan, it was his father, Mr. Rajshekhar Reddy, who did the very same thing. Cross-plantation on Tirumala started under Mr. Rajshekhar Reddy's tenure. And then these efforts have been doubled down. These efforts have been doubled up. And there are several districts in coastal Andhra where the demographic balance has been completely altered to Hindu detriment.
Now, Sai, I was going through the commentary on social media, and many people have compared this to what the Britishers did by adding animal fat in cartridge.
See, I think when the British man does it, I expect it, because that was his stated intent. But today, what is being pushed in the name of secularism is anti-Hinduism. Whether people agree with me or not, that's a different issue. But in practice, that is how secularism has worked out, where the state establishment takes a position that it is equidistant from all faiths. But it is not equidistant from the Hindu establishment when it comes to interference with our religious institutions. And it is not equidistant from other communities when it comes to extending benefits to them. So equidistance, as is expected in a secular country, I don't think has worked out to the benefit or advantage of Hindus. It's not even worked out, according to me, on just and fair lines. So maybe there are some fundamental issues with respect to our so-called principles of constitutional morality that must be revisited. But nevertheless, I do believe that this is yet another instance which showcases the fact that we are 8th grade citizens or 8th class citizens, to put it in the language of Anand Ranganathan, in our own country. And two, please remember that Tirumala has been the subject of repeated attacks under Jagan, where the fact of the matter is the temple board, the TTD, was populated with either Christians or openly practicing Christians. And we were being told that what is wrong with it.
Now, Sai, before we let you go, my final question to you is this. I have a report by the National Dairy Development Board, and among other things, it says fish oil, beef tallow, lard, which is pig fat. Now, as a lawyer, what should the state do to build a case so that an example is set, so that this is never repeated? A larger message goes out that this is not an ordinary case of adulteration.
Initiate criminal proceedings against the members of the TTD under whose tenure this happened. And if there is someone who signed off on this directly, that person must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for hurting Hindu sentiments under provisions which deal with causing hurt to religious sentiments. That must happen. In addition to that, they must be prosecuted further, according to me, for having indulged in bad faith conduct while occupying a position in which they're expected to have at least the minimum amount of fiduciary duty to the community to which this institution belongs, which is the Hindu community. I say this over and over again. If you take a look at the Andhra Pradesh HRC Act, there is a separate chapter that deals with the constitution of the board for the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam.
Right.
And each of those positions are state-appointed positions. It's not as if the community has a say. So for all practical purposes, if you really want to take a look at what is the textbook definition of state control of Hindu temples, take a look at the legislation that deals with the constitution of the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam. Take a look at the definition or the manner in which Jagannath Puri is controlled by legislations there. Everyone is a state appointee, or at the very least, the state has the final say and veto with respect to every decision, religious and financial.
Right. Sai, thank you for putting that in context. Always a pleasure to speak to you. We'll let you go. Viewers, that was Sai Deepak.